Hi and welcome. This is Isam from ISD Architects. I'm the design lead architect in ISD Architects. In this video, we're going to address this question. What is the most important factor that often times developers and buyers of properties neglect or negate or downplay when they're purchasing properties? What is that factor that stands behind the location and the proximity to, say, amenities, shopping malls, intersections of highways, quality of neighborhoods, and so on and so forth, or green parks and ravines? What is this factor that is often downplayed or not looked at carefully? In this video, I'm going to answer this question. It is obviously the orientation. It is the relation of the property to the sun path, to the location of the sun, in other words, in different seasons. And this is often not paid much attention by the home or business owners, by developers of properties, due to many factors. Is that when they reach a scenario of having kind of a perfect location, they kind of downplay the issue of orientation. But why is it important that we consider or reconsider orientation as one of our criteria when choosing a property? Actually, there are many reasons for that. The first is the aesthetics, the curb appeal, the uniqueness of the building and how it's lit, how it looks from the outside, how pleasant the spaces are. All these, I will categorize them under the word aesthetics. The other one is the functionality, or the best functionality of the spaces, meaning what is the best thermal space distribution. We know, for example, that in a house, the kitchen is a source of heat due to the fact that we use appliances. The furnace is a source of heat because it burns fuel in order to generate heat or coolness, depending on the season. These spaces, what is the best location for them in relation to the sun location, in relation to the season? If it's a hot season where there's a lot of sun penetrating the building or the building envelope, then where should we put these amenities or these spaces where we have to generate a lot of heat in order to use it functionally and effectively? Where do we put our living spaces? Where do we put our offices, our workshops? Where do we put our washrooms and bathrooms or changing rooms if we are designing, for example, a health center, or we're designing a clinic? All these questions are related much to the best functionality of the space. The other issue is the resale value, the impact of orientation on the resale value. When you eventually approach a point where you want to resale or resell your property, then there are aspects that you have to consider in order to make sure that you sell or resell at a high profit. So all these considerations play a role, and I'll give you an example just by making a little sketch here. So let's say that you're designing a house or a building. It doesn't really matter here, but let's say you're designing a house or a property that faces an intersection. So the location of the sun plays a role, and that's what we call orientation of that property. If it's narrow from this side and deep from that street, it's narrow on this side, then what do we do here if we need to have more sun? Which function should it be? And if that function requires some quietness, like bedrooms? Do we put it on a main street where a lot of cars here passing by and generate a lot of noise? What is the relation? Bedrooms love, naturally they love sun, because you can have the sun inside the room to warm it up during the winter time. Of course, you should avoid the sun during the summertime. That's why we use shading devices here to cast shadows on the windows during the summertime. I'm talking here as if this composition or this house or building is actually facing the southern sun. Now, what if this location is facing north, where the sun only casts its radiation on the back of the property? Would that be different aesthetically, climatically? The feel of the spaces inside, it surely does, and that's why a good orientation or a bad orientation does not really matter. It's the design that matters. How you deal with the space in case the sun was not here, for example. Do you provide shading devices? Do you put your bedrooms here? Or do you put the living room here? Do you put the services at the front? What if someone approached the property and was surprised that it's all a solid elevation that doesn't have really the aesthetic value, the aesthetic composition of a good mass? What if you make this window a series of smaller windows, for example? All of this actually is not an aesthetic decision per se. It has the aesthetic element to it, but the end goal is to create spaces inside that are thermally and aesthetically pleasant by the amount of light coming into it, by the amount of heat penetrating that wall or penetrating those windows, and whether or not you have distributed the spaces in that building in a way that feels flowing, feels comfortable, feel pleasant in terms of lighting. As you know, sun is not only the generator of heat, but it also the generator of aesthetic experience by casting shadows, by having pattern of light on the walls, by providing the space with enough light or deficient light or lack of light that it can affect the aesthetic experience of the people inside. At the end of the day, what we seek in a building is comfort, is feeling of happiness inside, feeling that the spaces are embracing us in a comfortable way. They are proportionate to our scale, to our uses, and that what orientation comes into play as a main factor. To conclude on this video, I would like to say that there are 4 points that you should pay attention to in conclusion. The first one is pay attention to orientation when thinking of developing your next property. Number 2, think of which spaces you want getting generous sun radiation. Which spaces in your house, in your office, in your factory, in your facility, what spaces should get more sun radiation versus which ones do not require sun radiation, and how to keep this sun radiation in the winter time where you most needed, where it most needed, when you try to evade it or keep it outside when it's not needed, mainly in the summertime in the upper hemisphere. So the number 3 is distribute your spaces according to sun path without jeopardizing the aesthetic of the mass configuration, in other words, the curb appeal, the beauty of the building, the aesthetic of the building. Distribute your spaces in such a way that doesn't consider one aspect over the other. There is a very intricate balance of things here that are at play. The aesthetics, the orientation, the prevalent wind, the curb appeal, the massing of the building. All these has to be well intricately designed in order to reach the maximum value for your property. And that value, including the resale value, when you want to resell your property. The number 4, consider green design principles when you design your property. This is very important because there are tools for architects, for designers of buildings that could be implemented at an early stage, not at a later stage, because it's going to be too late. When you're at the permit level, when you're at the construction level, it will be too late now to use an energy analysis tool like one of these computer energy analysis where it gives you how much heat gains you're getting, how much heating load and cooling loads. This is too late. It's got to be at the beginning of the design where you test your massing, you test your orientation to know if your building is overheated or if it's very cold in the winter time. Now this has been Isam from ISD Architects. I wish you had enjoyed this video and find it beneficial. Please click on the button below to comment or to like or dislike, but I would like to answer any questions that you may have about green design, about the principles of design, and about how to increase the value of your property, whether you're approaching a property to buy or you already have a property that you want to increase its value, whether for your own happiness, for your own living standards, to raise the standard, or for if you're thinking of developing a property for a future sale. Thank you very much for watching and hope to see you soon.